The night menglong fell from the 5th floor, the sky swallowed its own voice. Streets paused. Billboards dimmed. Even gossip blogs forgot they had a choice. His name had always been a spark, a flare, a flame that couldn't learn to hide. But that night, it wasn't his stardom shining. It was something darker, sharp as pride. For years, Yulong danced through fame the way a violin bends into a symphony, smooth, effortless, loud enough to make enemies jealous of his harmony. He had the face that directors worshipped, the eyes that fans stitched into dreams. And he lived in a world where every smile was edited, every truth dressed in seams. But on that cold midnight of his fall, nothing felt curated. No angle, no lighting, no PR filter waiting to be simulated. The pavement caught a secret no agency could swallow, and the silence that followed wasn't ordinary. It was hollow. Accident, the first reports whispered, barely making a sound. Exhaustion, stress, misstep, the second wave echoed around. But the nation felt something twist beneath those rehearsed replies, because Yulong's story had always been polished, never bruised, never compromised. And when his body hit the ground, something else broke in the air. A myth? A mask? A kingdom built on fame's delicate prayer? Nobody knew. Nobody dared claim they understood. But they felt it in their chests, that something rotten had finally touched the wood. By sunrise, the news had spread like a rumor caught in wildfire's grin. From Shanghai cafes to Lagos timelines, everyone whispered the same within. Menglong fell from the 5th floor, but why did the cameras cut? And with every unanswered question came another door slammed shut. Fan pages turned into vigils, hashtags into hymns of disbelief. Industry insiders vanished from social feeds like autumn leaves fleeing grief. Press conferences were canceled with excuses thinner than paper skin, and the studio where Menglong filmed last week locked its gates from within. There were murmurs about contracts sharper than knives, about handlers who controlled schedules more tightly than their own lives, about a manager with demands that crackled like electric wire, and a producer who burned young talents like offerings to a fire. But those were just murmurs, tiny ghosts of truth no one could name. Until the video leaked, and the nation exhaled in one broken flame. It appeared on a minor forum at 3:14 a.m., posted by an anonymous ID. No caption, no context, just a shaky preview window and the words, "You deserve to know." The first 3 seconds were static, grainy enough to make doubt feel automatic. But then the silhouette. Tall, slender, familiar even in the shadows net. Menglong, bound, breathing hard, head lowered but spirit refusing to depart. The room was narrow, like a storage space disguised as a dungeon of control. Concrete walls, a metal chair, and a voice distorted, playing the role of interrogator, puppeteer, judge, the kind of authority that spoke in threats. Not punches, not weapons. Worse in regrets. Sign the renewal, Menglong. You know how this game is played. The figure behind the camera swayed like someone bored of power, accustomed to fear, smirking through every silent tear. Menglong's voice trembled, but the courage in it glowed clean. I'll sign nothing. Not one thing. I'd rather lose everything I've seen. A slap landed, not loud, but sharp enough to slice the air. And the nation watching hours later swore they felt it from their chair. The video continued, psychological blows, threats painted in the kind of words only showbiz insiders know. A contract worth millions. A clause that might as well have been chains. A demand for compliance crafted by greed's cruel veins. And then the final moment, the sound that made blood run cold across screens. The door creaking open, the camera shifting, a rough hand dragging Menglong toward the balcony's beams. Before he vanished from sight, he whispered something soft but fierce. If truth doesn't free me, let the lie be pierced. And the clip ended. Cut. Black. Silence fierce. By noon, the clip had circled the globe twice. Fans cried. Politicians vowed inquiries. Journalists sharpened their knives. Streaming platforms removed his dramas, pending internal review. while bloggers declared they always suspected something skewed. Sponsors deleted his face from ads but claimed ongoing prayers, even though their sudden distance tasted like cold betrayal airs. Studio executives released statements so stiff they barely bent, filled with phrases like "we mourn," "we investigate," and "we represent." But the streets were louder than any boardroom wall. Masses gathered with candles and posters chanting, "Menglong didn't fall, he was pushed to fall." Online detectives exposed timelines, matched shadows, traced outlines. Some insisted the voice in the footage belonged to a famous agent. Others linked the room's background to a long controversial basement. Rumors grew teeth. Accusations grew wings. And the entertainment world woke up choking on its own strings. Behind closed doors, the panic wasn't poetic. It was raw. Studios begged editors to lean softer. Agencies begged influencers to wait for law. Meanwhile, internal memos leaked faster than apologies could form, revealing an industry that ate its young like a storm. People whispered of black contracts with clauses inked in fear, training camps where dreams cost more than careers, silent rooms where rising stars learned the price of saying no, and handlers who believed control was a talent of its own. And in the center of it all stood the ghost of Yu Menglong, a symbol of everything the industry polished wrong. His fall became more than a tragedy. It became a mirror reflecting an empire built on urgency, scarcity, and secrecy. A kingdom gilded with gold, but rooted in cruelty. National channels replayed his past interviews. Fans searched for clues in his old news, and every faint smile now seemed edged with pain, like a man who carried storms disguised as champagne. Just when the world thought it had seen the last chapter's flame, at 7:52 p.m., a new headline rose like a phoenix through the digital frame. Yu Menglong breathing on his own. Doctors confirm signs of consciousness. People screamed, cried, collided with hope so wild it felt like a dream revived. Reporters swarmed the hospital gates. Fans dropped flowers like soft, trembling weights. Doctors refused to give details, but admitted one quiet line. He's fighting. Hard. Determined. The rest will take time. A nation that had held its breath for days exhaled in trembling waves. The streets erupted into song, and for once, the chaos didn't feel wrong. It felt reborn, fierce, brave. Menglong's survival didn't close the story. It cracked the floor beneath a broken industry. Investigations ignited. Executives invited. Witnesses cited. Every secret the elite tried to bury was suddenly unlighted. And somewhere in a hospital room, a man once silenced by a fall began to rise again, not just to survive, but to reveal it all. Because stories like his don't end in defeat. They return in thunder, fire, and heat. Yu Menglong didn't fall from grace. Grace fell from him, and now the world must face every sin that tried to dim the truth written in his skin. And as long as voices dare to rhyme, dare to roar, dare to climb, his story will keep breathing, bleeding, seething, until justice steps onto the floor. The world thought it had reached the edge of shock the moment Yu Menglong hit the ground, but the deeper the footage spread, the more the nation learned there were layers beneath the fall, shadows, whispers, rooms without windows, truths that sliced cleaner than knives. The night after the video leaked, cities felt haunted. Neon lights flickered like they were afraid to glow too brightly, afraid to cast shadows that might resemble the room Menglong had been kept in. People walked differently, hushed, as if the pavement itself carried the memory of impact. In apartments, fans replayed the footage again and again, fingers shaking over pause buttons, searching for anything that could rewrite what they saw. Some insisted they heard multiple footsteps behind the camera. Others slowed the audio enough to claim they heard someone breathing nervously, as if even the villain feared the consequences of what they were doing. And still, others swore they heard Menglong's chains drag across the floor, a metallic note that burned itself into the nation's ears. Every time his whispered last line replayed, "If truth doesn't free me, let the lie be pierced," people felt their throats tighten. It wasn't just a statement. It was a prophecy. And the world was beginning to realize that his fall wasn't an accident, not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. It was an eruption of everything he'd been forced to swallow. In the entertainment district, walls once plastered with his posters were now bare, torn down by studios trying to distance themselves. But that emptiness made everything louder. It reminded passers-by that something had been taken. Something had been silenced. And silence in times like this was not innocence, it was complicity. Reporters didn't sleep. They formed circles outside the agency building, waiting for anyone who dared to walk out. Cameras flashed like hungry beasts. Microphones stretched like claws. Yet every staff member who appeared kept their eyes glued to the ground. Not a single person answered a question. Not a single person looked into a lens. Their fear spoke louder than confessions. Meanwhile, whispers swelled into storms behind studio doors. Some executives paced their hallways until carpet fibers loosened. Some deleted old messages, old photos, old receipts, digital footprints of crimes dressed as contracts. Some called lawyers in the dead of night, begging to know if silence could still save them. But even lawyers hesitated now. The video had done something no scandal had done before. It cracked the illusion of control. The fans outside the hospital grew with each passing hour. They lit candles, sang softly, cried openly, and held hands with strangers who felt like family in grief. The glow from their vigil painted the walls in gold, as if trying to remind the unconscious actor inside that he was not alone, that thousands were breathing with him, waiting for him, fighting for him. Late into the night, a nurse stepped outside for air. She didn't speak to any camera, didn't give quotes or details. But she closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and whispered, "He's trying." And that tiny, trembling phrase rippled through the crowd like a spark landing on dry leaves. Hope reignited. Phones buzzed. Messages flew. "He's trying" became the new anthem. Far from the hospital, in a quiet part of the city, a lone man in a hoodie uploaded another clip, a fragment from the same night, unseen until now. Not the room. Not the fall. Something stranger. Something that made the nation freeze, once more. It showed Menglong standing earlier that evening, his wrists red from rope, his breathing uneven, but his eyes, alive, furious, bright as lightning behind a storm cloud. He stared at the unseen captor, voice rough but unbroken, and said, "There will come a day when the world watches you run instead of me fall." That single sentence, fierce and steady, didn't just echo, it roared. It rewrote him, not as a victim, but as a warrior caught in the crossfire of power-hungry giants. And in that moment, the nation understood why they tried to silence him, why they feared him, why his fall looked too clean, too sudden, too planned. People didn't sleep. They stayed up replaying every frame, every breath, every tremor of courage in his voice. And as dawn approached, one thing became undeniable. The fall was just the beginning. The truth he whispered about was rising, stretching, preparing to pierce through every lie built to bury him. And the world was finally ready to listen.